I think this may be the best electric car on sale. So I'm going to say this at the beginning of the video. Usually I say this at the end as part of the conclusion, but please go out and buy this electric car if you're looking for an electric car at this price point, which is about the same price as a spec Tesla Model Y long range, because this car is better in every aspect compared to that car. And I think for this price, there's nothing else that comes close. I would actually buy this than more expensive electric cars. And if you've been following the channel for a while, I'm kind of a car snob, I'm kind of a brand snob, but this, it's so awesome. And I'm going to tell you why in this video. I want to ask you guys a small favor that is completely free for you, and that is subscribing to the channel. You may not care about subscribers, and I really don't care about subscribers, but the manufacturers and the brands do. So when I try to get early access to a car, they look at my subscriber count, they look at my view count. View count is very good, but subscribers is a little bit lacking for where I want to be to, be invited to more events. So I want to ask you guys to subscribe to the channel, and if we could get to 50,000 subscribers before the end of October, I want to plan a big trip somewhere in Europe, somewhere around the world with an awesome electric car, and I want you guys to choose where. So again, thank you so much for watching, thank you so much for commenting and liking and also subscribing. One of the reasons I think this car is so awesome and so great is because of this interior. I mean, first off, it is a very big interior. It's wide, it's long, it's spacious. There is a lot of room in the front cabin. You have a lot of storage, big door pockets. You have this center storage here with dual cup holders. You have more storage up here, USB-C port. You have a large armrest. You have lots of headroom. You have a huge panoramic sunroof. But you also have really nice build quality. And when the Volkswagen ID products first came out, I was one of the first people to criticize both the touch capacitive buttons, the infotainment system, a lot of the switches, and especially the quality. Growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, I was around a lot of Volkswagens, and what Volkswagen were really known for were having the nicest, the highest quality, most premium interiors in their class of vehicle. But with the ID.7s, that was taken away. Like the ID.3 had a really cheap interior, ID.4 not a lot better. This though, this is back to form, because I think the level of quality in this interior, it may not be as high as the Polestar 4, which maybe has the best interior in its price range, but this car is also fully spec'd the same price as a base Polestar 4, so that is something to consider. But what may be even more impressive, I think the attention to detail, the quality of materials, the lack of cheap and nasty plastics in this cabin is better than in the Audi Q6 e-tron, which I have spent a lot of time in. So I just have to say, this interior, it feels like finally you're buying an electric car at this price point and you're getting an interior that matches the price point. It's not cheapened, there's no cost cutting here, it's just an awesome interior, and I really love it. Even the touch capacitive buttons, after a few iterations of software updates, it's not my favorite system, but it works really well. It works better than hard buttons from other manufacturers. I still hope that Volkswagen go back to full physical buttons, but if they wouldn't do that, I would be fine with this, because it's not annoying, it's easy to use, and yeah, it's just really nice. The infotainment system, also one of the best infotainment systems in the business. I mean, it's easy to use. You have shortcuts right up here that you can customize. You can turn off lane keep assist, attention warning, speed limit warning, all of that with just in one sub menu. So it is a really nice system. And yeah, this interior, along with the ergonomics, along with the infotainment system, is just one of my favorite places in an electric car in 2024. And then we have the rear seats. So the ID.7 compared to the last generation Passat, if you're thinking of this as an electric Passat, I think a lot of people are. I think this basically is the electric Passat. It has grown considerably on the outside. I think it's almost 20 centimeters longer, and that shows in the wheelbase, because the Passat has always been a big car, but this is huge. I'm sitting behind myself. I'm about 180 centimeters or 5'11". I have massive amounts of leg room. I have massive amounts of headroom. Like, if you're considering that this car is shorter than a Tesla Model S, there's so much more room here. The floor is completely flat. The cabin is wide. The seats are nice. Yeah, you have this huge armrest with cup holders. I mean, like, having grown-ups, having kids in the rear, I don't think there is any better electric car like below 70 or 80,000 euros. Like, if there is, what car would that be? Like, this is awesome. This is so big and spacious. This is the business end of the ID.7 Tour, and I think from this angle it looks great. I think this is by far the best angle, this and maybe the profile. I just love a way a station wagon looks. But this being the business end, it is huge. Like, if you're talking about a car that has, you know, a big trunk, a badonkadonk, 605 liters behind the second row. If you fold down the rear seats, 1948 liters. I mean, who needs more space than this? If you do, you're not looking at a car like this. If you do, you're looking at a large SUV. But I think most people looking for a car like this, most people, you know, are satisfied with something Tesla Model Y sized. And considering that this is so big in the rear and also the rear seats, this is going to fit a lot of families. That's why the Passat has been one of the best-selling cars in Norway, in Scandinavia, and in Europe the past few decades. This is more than what you need. No, there is no frunk, but with this large of a boot, I don't think you're going to miss a frunk. This car is currently on 19-inch winter tires, and I think the wheels are a little bit small for this car. I would probably spec this with 21 inches. I don't think you're going to lose a lot of efficiency because all of these Volkswagens on this MEB platform, I've tested both with 20 and 21 inch wheels, and they don't seem to lose a lot of efficiency. So for the looks and for the aesthetics, I would go for at least the 20s, but possibly the 21s. But I think from this angle and in this color, it is a great looking car. Again, these wheels are a little bit too small for my taste, but I think it is a very good looking electric car, especially as I said from the rear and from the profile. But this has to be my least favorite angle of the ID.7. I mean, it's not ugly, it's not offensive, there's nothing crazy happening up front, but I just think it's a little bit boring and bland, especially compared to the rest of the car, especially compared to that rear end. I wish they just made a little bit more effort to make this, you know, a little bit more special, maybe a little bit more attractive, but overall, I like the exterior design of this ID.7 GTX Tourer. So I sit in the driver's seat and then I put the foot on the brake with the key in my pocket, and then the ignition turns on and then the seat moves forward. And before we set off, we have the shortcut up here where you can turn off lane keep assist and speed limit warning. There, it's off. That is so awesome. And then you have the gear selector here. You rotate it forward to go into drive, and then you just silently set off. You can twist it one more time to put it into something that's called B mode, brake regenerative mode, which gives you know, more of a one pedal drive feel, but it's not true one pedal drive. It doesn't come to a complete stop. I do have auto hold turned on, so when I come to a complete stop, it holds the brake for me, because otherwise it just creeps. So, you know, one pedal drive or not, I do prefer one pedal drive, but I drive so many cars like every week that I get used to it. My Porsche Taycan doesn't have one pedal drive, and for me it's not a big deal. Like, the car does really stop nicely, and this is what I think the Germans do the best out of any car manufacturer. It's just the time they spend tuning the throttle, the brake, the feel, the steering, all of the controls. Everything feels so cohesive, and you just get into this rhythm with most German cars that I don't think other manufacturers manage from other countries. Maybe other Europeans, but you know, if you drive a Kia or a Hyundai or something from Japan or an American car or a Chinese car, they don't have this cohesiveness. And I definitely don't have, you know, this sense of solidity that this car has. It doesn't feel, you know, like a Volvo XC90 or a Mercedes EQE or even an Audi Q6 e-tron, but it feels German. It feels more quality just going down a stretch of road than most other cars. So this being almost fully spec, it has the adaptive dampers. So you can go into different drive modes. I have my drive modes up here. So I have Eco, Comfort, Sport, and then Individual. You also have a traction mode. And I've mostly been driving this car in Comfort mode. And in Comfort mode, it is so comfortable. Like going over the speed bumps there, it's really nice. But especially at speed, like the dampening is so nice. There's one motion, it dampens the motion, and there's no, the body doesn't float. Like I remember driving the Tesla Model 3 Highland at 120 kilometers an hour. When the motorway got a little bumpy, the car would just bounce. It would never settle down, even though that car is a lot better than the previous generation. It's nothing, the suspension tuning in this, the drivetrain tuning is so many levels above any Tesla, and this is what you pay for and get with German engineering. Yes, this car maybe isn't as sufficient as the Model 3, but it's also a lot bigger. It's a station wagon, so the station wagon form isn't the most efficient, though this car has a very impressive drag coefficient of 0.24, which I think is probably the lowest of any hatchback, liftback, station wagon, SUV type shape this car has. So that's very, very, very impressive. So the comfort is impeccable. I would highly recommend you guys to get this car with adaptive dampers. I think it's going to be a night and difference between this and the normal dampers. One thing though is when you're going like high speeds above 100 kilometers an hour, it is very soft. Like if it's not a sporty car, you can't put it into sport mode. It tightens up everything. It makes everything, more stiff, but it really isn't a sporty car, this ID.7, even with the GTX badge. But what's even more impressive about this car, aside from the comfort, like the suspension tuning, is the quietness of the cabin. I've recently driven the Q6 e-tron, the SQ6 e-tron, the Polestar 4, and I think this is by far the most quiet. Like the Polestar 4 was quite quiet, but this is even more quiet and a lot quieter than that Q6 e-tron, and that is so impressive because this car is less than all of those cars, and considering the space you're getting here, the level of comfort, the build quality, the interior, the size of the car, the features, it's hard not to like this car. Like this is almost 5 meters long. I'm going to put the stats up for you on the screen. This has an 86 kilowatt hour battery. That is the usable capacity, and this performs very well in both my range test and in my long trip test. Charging speeds, claim 200 kilowatts. I've seen 203, 204, I think. Yeah, so except for one issue with, throttling with the battery on my long trip test, this has been reliable when it comes to charging. I've been on a long trip to this. I went to Eastern Sweden with it. I've almost driven this car 2,000 kilometers in a week, and I seldom drive that much because I really like it. It is an awesome car. Quiet, comfortable, spacious. Even the Harman Kardon stereo is pretty good. My only real complaint about this car is the performance, or rather lack of performance. Dual electric motors, 340 horsepower, 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 5.5 seconds. Isn't that fast in 2024? Especially considering that this car is almost 2.4 tons, like especially when you get up to speed, it's just lacking a little bit in performance. Like if you're on a motorway, you want to pass a car. If you're on a country road, you want to pass a car. It doesn't necessarily feel fast. So I wish there was a little bit more performance, but I do understand in the Volkswagen brand hierarchy, there has to be separation. Like the Audi A6 e-tron is soon gonna come to market, and that car in a lot of ways is probably going to compete with this. Even though the Audi is more luxurious, they are about the same size. But for that more money, you're gonna get more for performance, you're gonna get more range, you're probably gonna get more tech. So I understand that there has to be, separation of the brands and the products, but I wish this just had a little bit more power, because those 340 horsepower while passing, yeah, I wish this had like 50 horsepower more. Growing up in the 90s and in the 2000s, I remember reading a lot of car reviews, American magazines, British magazines, always crowning the BMW 3 Series as the best car in its class of vehicle. And I remember specifically with most of those tests, they would always say that the 3 Series isn't best at anything. It's just a really good all-rounder and very good at most things. And I think that embodies the Volkswagen ID.7 GTX Tour to the T because it's not the best at anything. There are EVs that are more comfortable, more quiet, have even more space, better range, faster charging. There are even EVs that are cheaper. You can spend a lot less money than this. But I think there are very few, if none actually, that package so much into one electric car. As I said at the beginning of the video, a lot of people at this price point, a little more than 600,000 kroner here in Norway, would buy a Tesla Model Y. But this is much more quiet, it's much more comfortable, it's bigger. I think it actually has better range, but it has a little bit slower charging. Maybe the infotainment system isn't as good, and it doesn't have, that outright performance. But as a package at this price point, I think this is the best electric car. I would recommend, and have already recommended this, to people looking to buy a more expensive electric car. For example, if you're looking at a Polestar 4, which would easily, with four-wheel drive, be about, 15,000 euros, 150,000 kroners more expensive than this. For about 250,000 kroner, so about 25,000 euros, you can go out and buy an Audi SQ6 e-tron. You're gonna get an SUV, you're gonna get more performance, maybe it's gonna be a little bit more comfortable with air suspension, but it's hard to recommend any of those cars when you have this, which is priced so damn good. And that's why, everything combined, the total package here, this is, I think, my favorite electric car of 2024 so far, and a car I could highly recommend to anybody. So go out and buy this, please. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please drop me a thumbs up down below, and for more car content, as always, please subscribe. See you guys then, goodbye.